back to TextData and look at the different types of things that we store in TextData. If we look at the types, we can see here we have 3PL. 3PL is for third-party logistics, lets you set a ship from address. If we look at, here's some EDI stuff. If we look at EDI, this tells us, let's see what's a good one to look at. Here we have, for example, EDI 850 ends. This is where we would store the SQL query that is used when generating the list on the EDI dashboard. And we'll have a whole session tomorrow or the next day on SQL queries, but we store the SQL queries are stored in TextData records. This allows you to modify them on a site-by-site basis or us to change them without having to install a new version of Stream. Let's see what other stuff we have in TextData. Oh, here we have browse control records. If we go back here and look at our company browse customer management that we looked at yesterday, we'll see that we have, remember, we have different index sequences that can be displayed. If you go up here and you say browse properties, it will send some stuff to the output window. And it tells us here, this is the browse parf record, CCR MCOMP. So we can go over here and we can see that here are the control records for the different indexes in the browse. It's something that you normally never ever need to look at, but it's an example of the type of stuff that we store in TextData. The Stream system is a little different from normal SQL-based systems. If you have a system like Genius or SAP or Oracle, instead of having one file like we have a TextData manager file, they will have a separate table for each set of information. So a typical SAP system might have 4,000 to 5,000 different tables, which makes it a real pain to manage because you lose the ability to get a good overview of your tables and your data structures. We've got about 125 tables, so instead of having hundreds of additional tables, we put the stuff inside of one table and then use types to group different sets of records together to make it a little bit easier to maintain. So here's a typical browse control record. If we look at this one, this is the company index. The company index, it tells us what the first field is, and then shows us that the first column is field 5. It's 30 wide. It's a left justified, and gives us the column title and then the number of pixels that the column is wide. So technical information, not a lot of interest to anybody, because the way you normally edit it, you saw it yesterday, where you would go in here and say add a column, insert a column. You would change the width like this with the cursor, and every time you do that, that actually updates this file, this record here in TextData. But it's show you it's a typical type of thing that we store in TextData. Let's see what else we would have in there. Okay, here's a typical thing that you might edit. SHP is for shipping. This is for the carrier, and this allows us to set what URL we go to when we drill down from the invoice lookup to see shipping information. In this case, we're going to FedEx. Here's the URL, this section here, and then the system replaces this token here with the actual tracking number that it gets from the manifest records. So in order to not hard code this, we put this in a TextData record. When FedEx or UPS changes what they're going to do, you can just modify the TextData record instead of having to get a new version of code, so that we don't have to release a new exe every time there's an information change from a third party. Other stuff we put in here. Oh, this is real common, SQL. We store all of our SQL queries here in the TextData record. Let's find one. For example, this is an AR summary, invoice aging by due date by customer. So the SQL record is stored in here so that if it gets modified, we only have to modify data. We don't have to, again, release another version of code. Normally, the SQL records you don't modify directly with a TextData editor. You see these records have section identifiers, for example, description, SQL code, special information, additional field, columns, totals. Those sections are used to display the different sections in the SQL edit prompt, which I'll show you when we get to that in a future training session. So that's system control parameters.